this is life and enterprise management. And so as a result, we want to make sure we work on both. We want to create a system that allows you to succeed in both areas, life and your enterprise. By the way, which one would you say is more valuable? Which one? That's not how most people live the game. Most people make it the enterprise. And as they make it the enterprise, they wake up and they have a tremendous amount of economic success if they're successful. And what's ironic is what makes you successful may not make you fulfilled. And so there's a big pull in our culture to go for what's most successful, what will reward you culturally with respect or acknowledgement or stars on your chart or economic rewards, thinking that will give us freedom. But how many of you have been very successful in business and not been free, i.e., your business, as it got more successful, demanded even more from you? How many have had this experience? Say aye. So what I want to really make sure that comes out of this is an evaluation of what your real gifts are that are going to fulfill you. Because many of you are living a script around your life that involves having an enterprise when really that may not be your true nature. That's not to say you can't do it. It just means you can do it and you'll be stressed out of your life, stressed out of your mind. And so one of the things we want to find out is how much of that is natural as a problem, how much of that is maybe unnatural. Unnatural meaning you're having problems right now that you shouldn't be having at this stage of development. Think about it. If a child is brand new and they have a problem with controlling their bladder, that's a natural problem, isn't it? But if you're 50 and you have this problem, you got a challenge. If a brand new business has a cash flow challenge, it's a problem, but it's a natural problem. If it's a business that's been around 5 or 10 years and it's got a cash flow problem, you got a real abnormal problem. Maybe you got a problem that's even life-threatening to the business. How many follow what I'm talking about here? Sometimes those problems have to do with the fact that you don't understand the stage of development you're in. The most important element is for you to be able to do this, to be able to establish, most importantly, where you really are in your life today. Where are you? And where do you really want to go? What's going to create this extraordinary life? And to look at it brand new. Because some of you right now, if you continue the direction you're going, are going to be successful and unfulfilled, unhappy, and stressed. Because once we get, into a dream, then that dream starts to take on a life of its own. It gives us juice, it gives us energy. But how many of you ever got the dream, achieved your goal, and then thought, is this all there is? How many of you have had this experience? Say aye. That's more painful than not even achieving it. Because now you've done everything, you've worked it out, and you're successful, and you're not happy. So for some of you, you're going to need to take a look at that. Michael Gerber, the guy that wrote the E-Myth, talks about why so many businesses, young businesses fail. And one of the things he says is most people are not really entrepreneurs, but they think that's what they should be. They think that's the sexy thing, that's the most attractive thing, that's the best answer. And what I say to you is you got to separate the vehicle from the outcome. What is it that's going to truly fulfill you? What is it that's going to give you that extraordinary life? What's going to make things magnificent on your terms, not somebody else's terms, not your father, your mother, your background? What is that really? Separate the vehicle, because there's many ways to get to that vehicle. I was here in town just the other day, and I met a gentleman over here, Steve Wynn's a good friend of mine, who started, who basically built most of Las Vegas. And he built just recently, the Wynn Casino, not a few years back, $2.7 billion hotel. The most expensive individual building ever personally financed, individually financed. To give you an idea, the first estimates on the rebuilding of the World Trade Centers were 1.7 billion, 2.6 billion for a hotel. Right? This man has the ability to take large risks, and he has the ability to really succeed in a major way. But I bring that up because I was in town, and for our new home, we have these hot springs. We're getting some really large crystals, and there's a guy in town who has this crystal shop, right? But you got to make an appointment to see the guy. And it's unbelievable. So I get to know him and talk to him and find out he's great friends with Steve. He's been skiing with Steve for 20 years. This guy used to have this business. He sold the business, didn't actually make that much money, but he was tired of the stress of the business. And he said, I'm just going to do what I love. And what I love to do is ski every day. So what he did was he started this little crystal business, made plenty of money, in his little business, had set aside some money from his previous business, and he gets up every day and skis, has a blast, and he has this unbelievable lifestyle. Because, he's Steve Wynn's guest everywhere. He flies on a Gulfstream, doesn't have to pay for it. Right? Doesn't pay the insurance, doesn't have to pay for the fuel, doesn't worry about maintenance, managing it, or anything. And he's telling me about all these things he does in his life, and he has a $1 billion lifestyle, billionaire's lifestyle. But he's structured his life in a way that's fulfilling, where he has time for his grandkids, where he has time for his wife, where he has time for his passions. But he just does it in a different way. He had this big dream he said of making this gigantic business, and all it did was stress him out. Now, I'm not saying that's the answer for you, but I'm saying sometimes you got to reevaluate what's going to really make you fulfilled. What is your gift? Are you an artist? Are you the talent that can produce something no one else produces as a skill or a product or a service or some impact? Are you incredibly good at management? You really know how to manage or lead people? Are you an extraordinary entrepreneur that can take that gigantic gut load of risk and can create the vision and attract the talent that you need and the managers and leaders? You may have all three abilities, but which one really fulfills you the most is going to be the critical question. Because we tend to want to do them all, especially in a room like this, because you're all overachievers, right? Me too. And you say, well, I can do all these. Yes, you can, but what will it do to your quality of life? See, again, the secret's going to be this. What is an extraordinary life on your terms today? Getting clear about that. At this stage of life, where you are, where you want to go. And I'll give you an example. I had the privilege of spending some time this last Easter. It happened to be that weekend. I got invited by the Dalai Lama for a really intimate group of people. They had a large conference, but initial meeting the day before was with about 45, maybe 50 people. And who was invited were a group of leaders from around the world in different areas, but primarily the people that were invited that were leaders in the Muslim world, leaders from the Christian world, and leaders from the Jewish world, called together by Dalai Lama in San Francisco. And so I got to sit in this room and really mostly witness, because I wasn't one of those leaders of one of those great traditions, obviously. But the interesting thing was watching these people, and we're together on the weekend of Easter, the birth of Muhammad, and Passover. I mean, it was fascinating being there. It just happened, bam, it's all happening at the same time. You have all these people together. And the Dalai Lama is a really magnificent man, regardless of one's religious beliefs. You know, anyone who can be an experience where everything in his life was taken from him, and yet still find a way to have a sense of meaning and be fulfilled and not be angry and rageful. I mean, imagine your family being murdered. Imagine your country being taken from you. And for almost, 30, 40, 50 years, you're living in this way. You can't go home. You know, most people would not have a really great quality of life, because what would be going on in their head, in their heart, would make them insane. Because clearly, his life conditions don't match the blueprint of what he thought it was going to be like. And for most people, that makes them crazy. And yet this man who's been through all this truly is one of the most loving human beings you're ever going to meet. He's one of the most generous human beings you're going to meet, one of the most compassionate. Like, he prays for the Chinese soldiers that, you know, have taken over his country, and he doesn't do it like, I'm better than you. He just praises their brothers that their hearts will open, that things will shift through time. He's an amazing man. So he brings all these people together, as only the Dalai Lama can do, and he's very self-effacing, and he's very humorous. And you have all these people in the room. In the beginning, everything is really wonderful because, you know, everyone's getting together to discuss how do we get our great traditions to work together. And sure enough, people get up and they talk about who they're representing and what their, you know, sect of that particular religion is, and the impact and how many people are there. And it becomes kind of a significance fight, like a group of business people getting together, fighting for position sometimes. And at one point, it got a little bit heated. And the Dalai Lama is sitting in the chair, and people go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm thinking, wow, how's he going to handle this? And he did this. He raised his hand like a school child. And everybody's talking. He just kept his hand up like this, little smile, right? And then finally, the room kind of got quiet, and then somebody called on him. And they said, Your Holiness, and he said, we all represent such magnificent traditions. We represent millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world. And he said, we'd all have to agree that at the core, all these people, regardless of the tradition they're following, they have certain things in common as human beings, as brothers and sisters of humanity. And he said, I would say and suggest that what they all want, regardless of their tradition, is one thing: to be happy. Isn't that why they're doing all this? They want to be happy. They want to have their children be happy. They want to have a sense of fulfillment. They just want to feel like their life has that experience of joy or pleasure or fulfillment. Isn't that what everybody wants? And he said, so maybe we should focus on the common elements that will bring happiness to all people. We can find them in all our traditions. Maybe that's the direction we should go with this conference. And you could just see like all these heads, very proud heads in some cases, nodding their heads like crazy. And I thought, God, how beautiful and how simple. That's why you really came here, my friends. That's why you're participating in this program. At some level, you have a blueprint, a mindset, a belief system, a philosophy, a set of values that says, if I master this thing called my life or my enterprise, then I'll have this great feeling. But what's really interesting about life, I believe that extraordinary life, however you define it, has two master skills to it. The first skill is the science of achievement. Most of you in this room have achieved enormously at various levels of business, or as an individual artist or talent, or as an entrepreneur, or as a manager or leader, as an investor. I mean, everybody in this room, most of you in this room, have really hit the jackpot by most of the world's standards, even though most of you think it's still not enough. But the science of achievement is a skill. It is a science. There are laws. So achievement, even this course, to me, that achievement is, business is a spiritual game. That's what I believe. It's a spiritual practice. A lot of people think it's business. Oh, that's money. That's this horrible thing over there. And that's one of the reasons that they never get really passionate about it. I'm a very spiritually driven, purpose-driven man. But the reason I love business is I see business as the ability to take the invisible and make it visible. I think that is what spirituality and creation is. It's about how can I find the gift I have to give the world? And how can I give it in a way that truly adds value? Not I think adds value, but the people receiving it, they vote with their feet and say, this truly makes a difference in my life. This is something I value. And then you know because they become a customer again. You know because they're thrilled with it. You know because they become a raving fan, not just a satisfied customer. Satisfied customers will leave you. Raving fans will stick with you. How many of you here, when I say the word, let's say, Microsoft, give me the emotion with sound that you associate Microsoft. Quick, go. Go ahead. If I say Apple, give me the feedback. Apple, do it again. No, I didn't lead you in any way. Apple made every mistake they could possibly make to go out of business. I remember, when Apple started not making any software and they changed the business, and everybody in my company came to me and said, we've got to go, because it's early in our company's history, we've got to go to Windows. I go, Windows is a piece of crap. I mean, it's a poor copy of this. That's absurd. But there was no software, and so everyone in my company went there, but I hung on to my Apple. Because people that had association to Apple are raving fans. They stuck by it, and now they got their iPods, and now they've got, their magnificent computers, and they know they got the best computers in the world. They just smile and laugh. But you notice, when most people associate to Microsoft, even though it's the biggest player in the world, you can just hear by the emotion, Some people get pissy about it. Very few people you'll ever meet that are pissy about Apple, except people from Microsoft. The point is, one is a satisfied customer at best, the other's a raving fan. If you're going to play the spiritual game of business, the spiritual practice, think about how fast can I take what I envision and make it real? How can I find my form of service, my gift, and give it in a way that is most impactful? That's really what this is really all about. Now, the second, and remember I said this is a science to achieve, and we're going to go through that science. How do we create a sustainable system that makes that happen? But the second skill of life is less focused on, and if you're going to have not only management, but create and grow an extraordinary life, you've got to master the second. And that second master skill is the art of fulfillment. The art of fulfillment. And the art of fulfillment, I call it an art because art is like what one person thinks is beautiful, somebody else may think is ugly. But what you have to be able to do is find out what is it for you that's going to fulfill you. And I'll tell you there's two primary elements to that. You've got to figure out what is your gift that's going to give you a sense of meaning, because you can't be fulfilled without a sense of contribution. You can feel happy. Happiness for most people is temporary. It's like pleasure. Eat a chocolate cake, make love, score a point in the game, get the trophy, take your business to the highest level, make the money. There's a moment in which, or maybe a day or an hour, or I don't know how long it lasts for you, but when you achieve those results, will you feel happy? How many know what I'm talking about here? Say I. And how long does it last? I can remember a day when I was on stage. I was in New York City. I was doing what I loved. I was, giving an event, and there was 18,000 people. And I was in the mode of doing what I love, going for it, full tilt. And during one of the stretch breaks, somebody ran up to me and told me our company went public that day, and I made $400 million that day. And I remember, wow, I thought, that is so cool. And then I just went right back to what I was doing, which is what I love most, which is serving people, my passion, lighting people up, feeling it. And then I went home, and I said, oh, yeah, God, it's unbelievable. I made $400 million. What's for lunch? And I'm not saying that, in a cutesy way or an arrogant way. It's just like what you would have thought would be like the most unbelievable thing. That wasn't as fulfilling as my art, my core gift being given. It was wonderful. And it's a good thing because later on, it was an internet company, and I saw quite a bit of drop in that company, like about 90%, 85%. And so I wasn't completely attached. I wasn't happy about losing that by any stretch. But my identity wasn't tied to it. So it was a hit. It wasn't thrilling. But I knew, hey, if I've done this, I can do it again. What have I learned from this process? But my gift was still there. I bring that up because you got to find out what your gift is. And many of you know what it is, and many of you think you know what it is. Remember, what makes you successful, what makes you fulfilled, may be two different things. So success without fulfillment, that's called failure. If you know somebody who's got everything they thought they wanted, and they're not fulfilled, they got a real problem. So what's going to make you fulfilled? Finding your gift, contribution. Life's not about me, it's about we. If we feel like we're contributing to someone else, then we don't just get something, we become something. And what you get never makes you happy long term. Who you become makes you very happy or very sad. So part of that art of fulfillment is, what's my contribution? The second part of it is appreciation. Some of you are contributing, but you're not taking the time to really appreciate. You're not noticing. So the art of fulfillment comes from contribution and appreciation. Tell us what's been going on and where are you now?
Well, I started my career by producing products 25 years ago, and I've always sold them.
Yes.
And I thought that I needed to sell them in order to make the money.
Yes.
So that's been the pattern.
Yes.
And for the last 10 years, I've been selling software that I created. It's excellent software. Excellent software. But I thought that I had to be the entrepreneur. And while I'm producing software, time just goes.
Yes.
A Monday morning comes and suddenly it's the weekend.
Yes.
And I've got to stop running a
Clearly
company.
a unique being here. But do you see, he certainly has his art, right? He knows his art because he's totally fulfilled. Time disappears. Okay?
And I thought the only way to provide for my family and those that we provide for was to sell and to manage a company. For the last 12 months, well, I've lost $500,000 this year running a company with a good product. Okay, so it's pretty obvious I can't run a company.
Yes.
It's not my center. So many times I get up on Monday morning and I feel like vomiting because I don't feel competent. I don't feel like I'm doing a good job.
Yes.
It seems decision after decision I make is the wrong decision.
Yes.
I know I'm not an idiot. I know I'm a reasonably smart guy, but as I was saying to my wife just a couple of weeks ago, I said, I've actually lost my confidence because for a year now, every major decision I've made has turned out to be the wrong decision. And I don't know whether I'm able to make the right decision.
Yes.
But that's because I was doing something that's not my nature.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I came here. The future looked very bleak because I'd lost my confidence.
Yeah.
And now that I've been reminded that that's not my nature,
Yes.
and I'm focusing back on what I can do, I'm feeling good about myself again.
Good. Well, you're going to lose. Give him a hand, first of all. Fantastic. Do you also attach to knowing what your nature is and knowing its value, meaning that it's not less valuable than running a company per se? Have you gotten that piece as well?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Now, I came and spoke to you when we were in Platinum.
Yes.
And you told me, get out.
Yes.
I didn't know how. Because if I didn't run the company, I had no income. Right. So I've been struggling with that. Now what I know is I go back to what I'm passionate about and what I find so easy, and that is creating.
Yes. And
it's like an incredible load has been lifted off my shoulders. I no longer feel guilty for my failure, my so-called failure. I'm just relieved.
It may not even be failure. It may be one of the most important lessons that you've ever had in your life. And it may be a lesson you can pass on to your children and save them an unbelievable amount of pain in their life so that they don't do the same thing because they think they should be like dad or like mom or like a brother or sister or a friend or what the society has told them. I mean, I think it's one of the most important lessons. And the challenge is we don't tend to remember a lesson that is easy. Isn't it true? I mean, when we succeed, what do? We party. When we fail, we tell them to ponder. And that pondering takes it from the cognitive down into the emotional and eventually down directly into the gut in your body. And now the lesson becomes one you don't forget for a lifetime. So I don't know that it was a failure, and I'm not just using it to be positive or be playful or blow smoke with your language, but I think it's really important you give it the effective and true meaning. If you got the lesson, it's one of the most valuable lessons of your life, wasn't a failure at all, and will give you freedom and fulfillment for a lifetime.
Absolute freedom. And this is 25 years down the track.
Yes.
And for a decade, I've been doing that which I hate. I'm passionately hating what I do. I talk about live with passion. I have passionately detested what I've been doing, but I didn't see a way out. I felt trapped.
So how are you going to do it now? What are you going to do differently? You're going to go back and you're going to embrace your gift. And are you going to sell the company? Are you going to partner with somebody? Are you going to work for a company and just take the income and have the freedom? What are you going to do? What's the route that you're going to take? Do you know yet?
That's a very good question. I haven't figured that out.
Okay.
But I do know the outcome, and that is I'll be spending my time in creation.
Perfect.
So the future is bright, whereas I came here, I was a mess. I was stressed out and I've never been so stressed in my life as I have been in the last 6 months.
Well, now you're not going to be, so think about what life will be for the next 10 years plus. Give him a big hand.
Yay. Thank you, Tony.
Whether you're the talent, that's the gift you've got, whether you're the manager, leader, whether you're the entrepreneur, find your gift and give it every day with more intensity, more beauty, more love, and more unselfishness, and ironically, you'll fill up even more. You'll feel more love and joy and happiness because you'll love yourself, for God's sakes, regardless of what other people do. And it won't be an ego love yourself where you're lying to yourself so you can make other people think you're a certain way. It'll be you connecting with you. And when you connect with you, it's very easy to connect with the real part of other people. That's what life enterprise management is. I'll give it to you. 3,000-year-old simple phrase. Know thyself. But I'll add one. Then be thyself. You know yourself, but you don't be yourself. You just wasted all your time. Don't make yourself wrong. Engage yourself. Find the gift. I'll give you a perfect example. I have a friend, John McCormick. He owns a company called Visible Changes Hair Salons. I don't know how many he got now, like 75, whatever they are. Very, very successful man. He was Inc. magazine's, Entrepreneur of the Year many years ago. And when I first met him, we had these great conversations, and I asked him about what really changed his life. And this guy was, from the Bronx, or Brooklyn rather, and all of his family members, his father and his father's father, had all been police officers. So kind of picture that culture growing up. What are you supposed to be when you're born? A cop, right? And everything associated with cops is important, so that, you like your mother or father, you like your family, they're close and loving to you, and he's a cop, and grandpa's a cop, and the culture's being a cop, you're going to be a cop. So he became a cop. And as a cop, 19, 20 years old, he found out something about himself that was different than his family. His father relished running into a building where somebody might have a gun to his head and figure out how to talk his way out of it, like when he's working with a crook. He did not have the same gift. He didn't have the gift of desiring to be in a place of such massive uncertainty like his father did. Not at all. Not in this context, anyway. He might want it somewhere else, but not here. Everybody wants variety, but that's not what he wanted. And one day he was chasing a guy, and he turned around, and the guy had a gun out to his head, and he fired at him and barely missed. And fortunately, his partner got the guy. And the next day he said, I am not being a cop. It ain't worth $20,000 a year to have somebody shooting at me every day. Now, when he did that, nobody in his family was happy about it. But he said, I am not going to do that. I'm not. So interestingly enough, he had a very creative mind, and he liked people. And a long story short, some guy met him and said, it's Christmas time when he quit. He had no money. And he said, how about, you partner with me, a friend of his, and he said, we'll buy a bunch of Christmas trees. He said, I got this money, and I'll give you a third if I got to pay for it. If you want to put money in, we'll split 50-50. And let's take this little, parking lot over here, And it's not even ours. Let's sell Christmas trees there, man. We'll make some money. So he said, well, there's no electricity. The guy says, come on, man. He said, there's a woman next door. We'll borrow her electricity. We'll get a cord from her. So sure enough, he and his buddy, John McCormick and his buddy, they go out and they buy these Christmas trees. They drive a million miles away to get them, so they get them really cheap. They bring them to New York City, down in Brooklyn. It's a little parking lot, an old broken down building. They put them out there, and they sell all the Christmas trees, and they go back and do it again. They keep reinvesting, and over the period of like 2 or 3 weeks, he makes X amount of money. I don't really remember the number, but let's say it's $10,000. More money, almost as much as you'd make in a year, half as much as you'd make in a year, and he made it without somebody shooting at him, and he made it in 3 weeks. He's like, this is something I'm into. So then he took that money, and he had a knack for just studying things. Like, he's a very practical guy. And he looked at a couple things, and he said, you know what, I'm going to invest in some stocks here. I'm going to invest in this company. And he invested in the company, and long story short, he did so well that in a period of roughly a year, he made $250,000. Okay, and he'd been a cop making 20 grand roughly, right? So now he is flying high, and he's doing so well that the guy who is his stockbroker says to him, man, you're incredibly good. You ought to do this for a living. So he introduces him to his boss, and sure enough, he gets a Series 7 license, and now he's a stockbroker. What a change. As a stockbroker, he's picking these deals, and he does really, really well, and he makes almost $1 million in the next 12 months. He does most of it on his own stock picking. He makes some of it on the selling. But he's just more interested in picking. He's like really good at pattern recognition is the bottom line. And so sure enough, he does this thing, and all of a sudden, his ego is out of control. He buys a brand new limousine, his own personal limousine, and hires a person to drive him. He goes out partying every night, and the woman who loves him, he just blows her off, and he starts chasing every woman that exists there. And everything is wonderful in his life until one day, who knows what happens? The market crashes, and sure enough, as the market starts to crash, specifically his stocks crash is the most important thing, and he loses everything. Now he's losing everything, but now he's down to pennies again. He's down to like $5,000, and of course he throws all that down too, and he misses there, and he's like, oh, if I could just get some money, I can do it. So he convinces a bank, based on the money he's earned in the last year, to loan him money. And the next thing you know, he's $250,000 in the hole, owns nothing, his car is repossessed, all his friends disappear, because they weren't really his friends. They were just people that were getting resources from him. And he's completely alone. And now he wants to kill himself. Because, contrast, I've been a millionaire in a year, and I've had everything, and I have no friends, I have no car, I have no home, I have no direction. I don't have a college degree. I'm humiliated, I'm destroyed. So he goes to the beach, right near the pier. And he's sitting on the beach, and he's looking at that, and he's planning how he's going to do it. Like, do I tie a rock to myself, and jump off the pier? He can't live this way anymore. He thinks he can't deal with it. He is what you would call stuck. Right? With a capital S. And as he's sitting there, and just looking out, and all this anger and intensity and stuckness inside, instead of engaging, he's just living in it. And this old guy, probably 70 years old, comes walking by and he goes, the ship. And he looks up and he goes, Sonny, looks at the boy, the ship. Your ship ain't coming in. There's a sandbar there. It can't come in. You got to go out to your ship. And he said, well, what are you talking about, old man? He goes, your ship, it ain't going to come in for you. You got to go out to it. Obviously, this old man saw what this young man, 25 years old, was doing in his head. It was obviously on his face. And he said, so tell me, why the long face? He said, you really want to know? And so sure enough, John dumped the whole load on him. His upbringing, Brooklyn, growing up, people shooting at him, quitting the police force, the Christmas tree story, right? Making the money in stocks, $250,000, making $1 million, becoming a stockbroker, losing it all, borrowing money from the bank, and now he's worth minus $250,000. And frankly, there's not a reason to live. My friends weren't my friends. The one woman I loved, I went out with everybody else. She's around, but I don't feel worthy of her anymore. And he looked at him and said, can you run? He said, what? Can you run? Well, yeah, of course I can run. He said, you think you could beat me in a 100-yard dash? He looked at him and said, come on, old man. You're probably, what, 3 times my age? He said, yeah, I could beat you in a 100-yard dash. He said, you want to bet on it? He said, you sound like you're a betting man. He said, well, what's the bet? $50. $50 I beat you in a 100-yard dash. He said, what's the catch? He said, there's no catch. He said, in fact, I'll give you odds 10 to 1. If you beat me, I'll pay you $500. That's $500 is a lot of money, right? He said, but I want you to go. You got the money? He goes, well, no. He said, meet me tomorrow morning. Come back here at 8:30. We'll have our run. Bring the $50. You beat me in a 100-yard dash, $500. I beat you, I get the $50. Deal? He goes, okay, old man. He shook his hand and he told me later, he said, I don't know what this deal is. Maybe the old man just feels sorry for me. He's giving me $500. But for the first time, he had a compelling future. He said, the problem is he didn't have $50. So he went home to his girlfriend, the one that stuck by him, right? And he told her the story, and she was like skeptical as hell, but she had $50, so she gave it to him. Sure enough, the next morning, he shows up at 8:30 in the morning, and he's ready. I'm going to get my $500. You know, that's compelling. That's something to look forward to now. Got a reason to live, at least for a day or two. You know, $500 would be a lot of money again. At least I could, you know, maybe I could invest. Maybe I could do something, he said. So he gets there, and sure enough, he's waiting, got to show up. Sure enough, he ends up sitting in the same place, looking at the water, and he goes, ready, Sonny? And he looks up, he goes, yeah. He goes, you got your $50? He goes, yeah. You remember the odds? He said, yeah. 10 to 1? Yeah, great. He says, now, Sonny, are you strong? Think you could beat me? I said, oh, yeah. He said, now, you ever been to the track? He said, what do you mean? He said, have you ever been to the horse track? He said, yeah. I said, what happens when one horse shows up and it looks a lot stronger than the other horses? He said, well, they handicap him. He said, that's right. He said, so I brought you something. He said, how do they handicap him? He says, well, usually they put some extra weights on him. He said, I don't need that handicap. I don't need to carry those weights. He said, so I'm going to give you something instead. And he hands them a knapsack. He said, get in. He said, what? He said, first he made him mark the 100 yards. So he marks the 100 yards. He goes, okay. Then he says, okay, the handicap story. He goes, give me. He hands him a knapsack. He goes, get in. And he said, fine, I'll still beat you. I'll hop faster you down there, old man. He said, you think you're going to beat me? He said, I know. That's why I'm going to give you your second handicap. And he turned him around backwards. That's right. He goes, ready, go. And the old man took off running, and as you guessed, the man beat him easily. So he comes by and he takes the $50 from him. He's going to keep your word? Give me it. He takes the $50 from him. And he said, so what'd you learn? He said, I learned I got gypped and ripped by an old man. He said, that's all you learned? He said, go jump off that bridge. He said, that's all the smarter you are, then you go jump off that bridge. If you're a little smarter than I think you are, you go home and you think about this. You meet me tomorrow morning at 8:30 and we'll have lesson 2. You don't need to bring any money. Just bring the answer to what you just learned. If you give me the right answer, I'll take you to the next level. And John spun out. Walked out of there going, I got conned by an old man. I lost $50 more. I have $250,000 and $50 in debt. Yeah? And it's my girlfriend. I got the $50. He's like, how am I going to tell her that I lost her $50 in a race to an old man? All night long, he's up trying to figure out what the hell you're supposed to have learned from this. Don't trust people. Don't listen to people, right? Because every moment of your life, you got to decide what are you going to focus on and what does it mean and what are you going to do? Is it the end of the beginning? Are you being punished or rewarded? Meaning is where all life is shaped, and you have the power to change the meaning how fast. But you better ask a better question or come up with a better answer. So sure enough, he comes back the next morning. He's thought all night. Sure enough, the guy's there. His name's Abe. Abe's there. He said, okay, young man, what did you learn? He said, well, I guess what I really learned is I lost because I let you make up the rules. He said, I got 2 sons. Both went to college. Took them 10 years to figure that out after college. He said, you could be a very wealthy man. And John's eyes lit up. He said, what's the next lesson? He said, well, if you get that lesson, on that one alone, you could become wealthy. His second lesson to him was he said, now, tell me what you think your challenge is. He says, well, I don't have any money. He said, well, have you ever done a balance sheet? He said, well, of course I have. I don't know how to do a balance sheet. He said, great. Well, let's do the balance sheet on your life here. Tell me what's on a balance sheet. What do you think is on a balance sheet, guys? What do you see? What do you see? Assets and liabilities. He said, so you're telling me right now you can't succeed, you don't have a reason to live. And he said, my guess is it's because you haven't done your balance sheet in a long time. So he said, come on, let's fill out the balance sheet of your life. Tell me what you got. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I got. He said, I got minus $250,000 is what I got. Actually, $250,050 thanks to you. I owe $250,000. I'll tell you what else. I don't have, a college education. I don't have a degree. I don't have many friends. He went on and on and on, and all of a sudden, Abe shook his head and he said, stop, 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 stop. You clearly know nothing about an asset. So you don't know how to find out what your assets and liabilities are. He said, think about this. You got a balance sheet? What does that tell me when you start with the liability side? Any man that starts with his liabilities before his assets is destined to have pain. He said, tell me some assets. He goes, I don't have any assets. I don't have any money. He said, come on, you have some assets. He said, clearly no one taught you how to build a balance sheet. He said, the first asset you got is that you owe $250,000. He said, any man who can get a bank to loan him $250,000 has assets. He said, so first we got to move it over here. Asset, owe $250,000, which means the bank is invested in me. Now, to be able to borrow $250,000, you must have some other assets. He said, oh, I don't have any other assets. He said, you got a high school education? He goes, well, yeah. I go, okay, great. $250,000, high school education. Okay, what else? He goes, that's it. I don't have anything else. He said, you speak English? I said, what do you mean do I speak? He said, do you speak English? He said, yes. He said, put it down, speaks English. Do you know how many people don't speak English that come to this country and become multimillionaires? And how hard it is when you can't speak English? Speaks English, he writes down. He goes, all right, what else? He goes, I don't have anything else. He said, do you know currency? And, he says, well, you mean like yen to the dollar? He goes, no, do you know currency? Quarters, nickels, how to put them together to get change. So he goes, knows currency. And he just kept building this thing and building this thing until there were so many assets and so few liabilities that John got it. He said, do you know your way around town? I said, what do you mean? Do you know how to get around town? You know how to get from one place to the other? You know people don't know how to do that when they come here? Do you think that's a liability? You have that asset. And you probably know how to do it efficiently. Did you know how many immigrants have come to this country that don't speak English, that don't know how to make currency, that don't know how to get around the city, and became multimillionaires because they're more focused on their assets than their liabilities? Your turn. Make your balance sheet. What's your goal in a balance sheet? To have a lot more what? Then what? Brings a much higher net worth, doesn't it? How do you feel about your business right now? Well, what if, that whole thing, what if, I don't really have resistance to having to run the business, but it's my vehicle. What's the answer to that question, guys? Get a what? Team. If you want to stay in the business, get a team. Be the primary talent. Find somebody else who's the manager leader. Find somebody else who's going to be more the entrepreneurial side of that. Share what can be built. If you have something that is a real talent, or if you have a real management ability, you can attract the other two people. You can find a talent that you can help promote and manage and lead, and you can certainly get somebody to help fund it, take the risk with you on it, and help you innovate it. That's what we're talking about here. Make sense? Does it sound like something that you're committed to really mastering for your life? Yes, no? Yeah, give everybody a big hand. Very nice.
Now that you've learned how to tap into the value of your greatest gift, take 5 minutes to complete your true gift assignment. Number 1, who are you at your core? In what role are you most fulfilled? The talent, manager, leader, or entrepreneur? Number 2, what are 1 to 2 actions you can take now to develop your strengths and spend more time on what you love? As a final bonus exercise, Create a balance sheet for your life. Make sure to include all of your assets. Want to learn more about your true gift and go to the next level in your professional life? Go to TonyRobbins.com/truegift to get your free coaching strategy session, free downloadable content, and exclusive savings on Anthony Robbins events and newest products.